So Lee, stoked to sit down with you today. I want to start by asking you, how did your journey into men's work begin? And take it from wherever you feel makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, man. Stoked to be here. Let's see. 2017, I'm hosting a dinner, 4 or 5 people, something I like to do a lot of at that time and since. And there was a guy there, a mutual friend. I won't name him, but, a guy sitting there with another mutual friend. And men's work came up. And the group that we know as CRT was also being discussed, which is a relationship therapy training. And I leaned in, got curious. I wanted to join the CRT cohort, but that had already started. And Phil, the founder of the Brotherhood, got back to me after I reached out and says, well, we're full here, but why don't you try this out? And at the time, the Brotherhood was 2 years old, and at least this iteration. So I popped in and sat in a group of 15 strangers in the leader's living room in Kitsilano, Vancouver, and that's 8 years now since then. So, I'd always been in various growth communities, personal development programs, workshops, something that's, I guess, always been an interest and a passion, but this was different. It was a weekly meeting with the same guys. That's where it started.
What about joining a men's group interested you though? What pushed you over the edge? What did you think you were going to get out of it? What did you see in it for yourself at that point in your life?
I think I always liked the idea of a workshop or a program or a community that would help me look at my life in a deeper way with tools to help grow and improve or optimize or connect with like-minded people. And the Brotherhood was, for me, an opportunity to deepen my relationships to men who were all, on that page with me, to improve and grow. And I didn't even really know what to expect. And I didn't even really know what to make of it for the first few months. I knew I liked it. And it was, there was, some mystery. There was it was edgy. There was just, I'd never seen or experienced some of the exercises and the processes. There was raw, vulnerable conversations happening. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but I felt that there was something there for me from the beginning. So to answer your question, I don't know exactly, I can't pinpoint or name what drew me in, other than it was an opportunity to grow and connect with other guys. It took a while to kind of deepen and appreciate what was on offer, what was it, what was the experience. That took time. We can dig into that if you like, but that's what drew me in.
So for all the people listening who don't know what goes on in a men's group, beyond sharing about your life and getting support from guys, can you speak to maybe the surprises that were there in the first year when you were sitting in circle? Maybe share in detail some of the things that you saw. They're holy cow, what is this? And that really drew your interest and what you thought you could get from it. Yeah, maybe just share a little bit what it was like and what it is like sitting in a men's group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Well, initially, as I said, I wasn't quite sure why I kept going. Mm-hmm. It's a big commitment, 3 hours every week. Yeah. I don't know any of these men. There's 15 of us crammed in a living room, side by side. I had my judgments, as a lot of men who come in do.
What judgments?
Well, listening to the guys share their lives, and I think I went in expecting, I had a story. I was expecting there to be a syllabus or a program that would guide me like a workshop.
Yeah, more structure.
Or a mastermind.
Yeah.
I dabbled or dove into many programs in the past that were kind of like Landmark. It was structured. There was a teacher. And this was different. I'm just sitting there with guys listening to them share about their lives. And so my judgments came up were things like, I'm giving 3 hours a week to listen to men complain about their lives. How is this helping any of us,
Yeah.
But the surprise came when I took the risk of opening up and being vulnerable myself, right? And what I mean by that is sharing something that I wouldn't normally share. Something I exposed my mind, as Phil likes to say, our founder. So I exposed something about myself that was a vulnerable thing to share. And at the time, it was related to my relationship to alcohol, like my addiction to alcohol. So at the time, I was a personal trainer, massage therapist, busy making money, had a nice apartment and kids, had all the toys. I didn't consider myself an alcoholic. I wasn't, abusing alcohol in a way that would even maybe be viewed as an alcoholic from the outside looking in. But it was more habitual than I cared to admit, and it did have negative effects on my mental health, on my sleep, on my physical health. And I was spending a lot of money. I was, drinking nice wine every night, and it wasn't something I wanted to share. And that was my first, I would say, breakthrough moment where I went from thinking, man, what's the point of this, to, oh, okay, I get it. So I opened up and I shared about my relationship to my drinking and my struggles with it, and having the men all lean in and hold space for that. They were curious. I got some really good questions from the men, and the leader sort of directed the conversation in a way that I appreciated. And it awoken something in me that helped me integrate my truth around my relationship to alcohol, and led to me quitting alcohol completely. It's been over 6 years now that happened, and I never went to AA and didn't seek out any addiction counseling like the typical path for men or anyone who struggles with addiction perhaps would. Mm-hmm. But this group, of just random guys sitting in a circle once a week, holding space, showing interest and curiosity, and extending empathy and some advice was what it took, and the ongoing support. This is one example of where I got value from the Brotherhood and was surprised by the depth of the experience of showing up every week and just sharing about my life. Right? Yeah.
It sounds like that moment of sharing vulnerability for the first time was like a bit of an aha moment of like, oh, this is what this is. I'm curious if there were any other big inflection points. I mean, you've been in this organization and in men's work for what? 9 years?
Yeah, it's coming up 9.
9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in that journey that kind of like it's marked in your mind as a turning point or a very powerful moment for you beyond the first aha moment that still sticks with you? It's like, oh wow, that was a time where this really shifted.
Yeah, well, if we follow the chronological order from that moment, which was roughly 6 months in, to roughly a year in. So the groups, the men's groups, we call them squads in the Brotherhood. At the time, I think there was maybe 10 or so, 2 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And not all the groups, but a lot of groups would take their members off on their own retreat, book an Airbnb somewhere, spend a weekend together. And during that retreat, we're all cooking meals, going on hikes, doing exercises, processes, deep diving. I think there was some breath work. There was a depth in the sharing and the opening up around where we're stuck, where we're suffering in our lives, what we want to call in, what's our vision for what we want to do. We did a lot of exercises around that, and I had another big aha moment or a breakthrough when the conversation moved towards money. And at the time, I was making good money, but I was spending it all. So I had some avoidance around ownership with my relationship to my money. And that was another big vulnerable piece for me to share with other men. I found, being a personal trainer, my clients are usually quite wealthy. I'm surrounded in success, and I'm making great money, but I'm not saving, I'm not investing. So, and I didn't talk about that with anyone until this retreat. And in this retreat, there are young guys, 10 years younger than me. I'm in my mid-30s at this point, and they're running companies. They're successful, high net worth, all this kind of stuff. So here I am, 10 years older, with these men in my group, and I feel I'm judging myself on the topic of money. And I opened up about that, which is something we do a lot in this community. A judgment I have about myself is, a judgment I have about you is a common, phrase we'll use to open up and share vulnerably. And I did that on this retreat. That was the exercise. So I opened up about my issues, my struggles with money, with feeling like comparison, and some shame around where I was in my life and so forth. And that was a huge turning point. It not only opened up a deeper bond with the men, because now they knew where I was in my life, but also it led to a conversation around my career and my future and what does that vision look like, and it led to some big moves that came later, around career and pivoting and my relationship to money and all of that.
Yeah, there's something about the act of opening up and sharing with the other men about something that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have dealt with. I guess maybe it opens up like this space in your mind, like, oh, now I've shared this thing, it's front and center. What am I going to do about it? Like, can bring about the change that you want.
Totally. Yeah. You bring something out of secrecy, especially if you have shame or maybe you're just not really being honest with yourself. You're presenting one way, but if the people in your life who you're closest to, who care about you, knew all the facts, just them knowing, and they know, might cause you to make some new decisions. That's what it was for me, right? The guys all knew my situation. They knew exactly how much money I had, how much debt I had, what I was making, what I was doing to make that, how I felt about what I was doing.
Like, oh shit, now I have to do something about it.
Right? So it opened a conversation that led to me pivoting and making some pretty big changes in my career and my relationship to money and investing and all of that for the better.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the second big aha moment. Two big things: addiction, my relationship to alcohol, money, all within the first year.
A pattern that's, you've seen over and over again, but it's all too common with men that we see just in society, but also when men join a men's circle, is what we call the lone wolf mentality. The idea, well, it's not even an idea, it's just like the tendency of men to do things alone, to feel like they don't need support, feel like they don't need to share, feel like they can handle it on their own. Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak to the lone wolf and how that's either showed up in your life, and starting as far back as you can remember, and maybe how it's shifted for you.
Yeah, I can relate. The lone wolf for me, shows up for everyone a little differently. For me, it was, presenting a side of myself that I wanted the world to see. Competent, intelligent, strong. And there's a loneliness in that, because you don't want to show the part that is spending everything I make, or is drinking too much, or feels socially anxious sometimes, whatever it is. And sometimes I think when people speak about imposter syndrome or like they're lonely, it is related to this. It's if you can't show at least the people closest to you, let alone or whatever community you're a part of, sometimes even your direct family, if you can't show them your true authentic self and you're filtering this mask out, then that lone wolf experience starts to manifest itself in that space. So this was my experience, right? I had the apartment in Kits by myself, nice big apartment, wood stove. I renovated it. I had all the toys, but I had no savings and no investments, right? Guy in my mid-30s, that wasn't smart. But it looked like I had my shit together, but I didn't. So that felt lonely. Another thing that comes to mind when you ask about the lone wolf mentality is I think there's a relationship to hyper-independence, which for me was a real thing. The Brotherhood helped me with that a lot. It helped me in two ways. Supporting the other men that I sat in circle with, whether it be physically supporting them, helping them move, helping them build something on their property, going for a walk when they're struggling, just holding space, listening, giving them advice, whatever, many different ways. And allowing men to do that for me, which was not something I would turn to usually. Like I tend to isolate. I think a lot of guys do if I'm struggling, whether it's mental health or whatever. Showing up every week, sitting in circle, having an agreement that you show up even when you don't want to be there, which is the lone wolf tendency, right? Which was my tendency.
So learning to lean in and show up even when you don't want to.
Yeah. So that comes to mind when you mention lone wolf. It's the Brotherhood helped me to lean in and connect when I was struggling, and to lean in and connect when the other men are struggling as well. So there's a having each other's back is a saying that we have here. I have your back. So that was a big piece for me.
You mentioned struggles with mental health, and that's a huge topic with men, especially men who are isolating or alone. I was wondering if you could speak more to, how that's come up in your life, how you dealt with it, worked through it, and learned from it.
How long do we have?
Start wherever.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so meta bullet point, tough childhood. What I would later learn was anxiety in my body connected to a hypervigilance way of being and experiencing the world, which then leads into bouts of depression, bouts of anxiety. I would hit this tolerance wall of handling stress, whether it's working in a team or at a certain job or just whatever. Things come up, and I would notice throughout my teens and 20s especially that my tolerance for managing stress was, on the one hand, I could white knuckle through it because that's all I'd known, but internally there was a real storm that I didn't know any other way until I started, doing the work, whatever that looked like at the time. In my 20s, I went through a lot of spiritual pursuits, whether it was meditation, yoga, reading all these different books. And I found a lot of wisdom there, and it helped for sure. Then in my kind of mid-20s into my 30s, I found coaches like Anthony Robbins and his books and his workshops, different mentors that would run masterminds, Landmark. And I learned that, okay, this level of body anxiety, these like spikes and depression is not normal. And you start joining the dots, right? You look at your childhood, you look at your your tolerance for and your capacity for stress and conflict or whatever.
Not normal in the sense of like not what you want to be a healthy human being, but I mean, probably pretty normal for people to experience generally though, who are.
Totally.
Yeah.
Not normal as in from 1 to 10, your nervous system redlining at an 8, 9, and getting there really easily and staying there for long periods of time, days, of stressful ruminating. Yeah. That's not normal. Yeah. And what it would do, so I'll give you a good example. And this was a time right before I entered the Brotherhood. So I spent most of my adult life self-employed, which is connected to the hyper-independence and the hyper-vigilance, right? So it's in the rabbit hole right there. I moved to Canada, and in order to stay here, I needed a visa, like a work visa. So I had to get sponsored. So I find this great job at a gym in North Vancouver. And it was amazing, and I learned a lot, and had great people working there. They treated me well. I did my best and did a great job and was acknowledged and all the good things. But my experience was that I was just stressed the whole time. And that hypervigilance sort of, might look like a stoic mask, but really that was a functional freeze for me, was almost constant. And that blocked my ability to connect, to relax, to be playful with the team. And my boss, the owner, would point that out sometimes. He says, you're part of the team, but you're not. And I get that feedback a lot. So it ties into the lone wolf, question, and the mental health piece is it's the theme under it all. And the Brotherhood and sharing about my life and my experience really helped with this. I mean, the weekly meetings give you so many opportunities to share what's coming up that week. So if I'm spiking, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever's going on, and the stories are swirling, and now I'm sitting in a circle with the men who know me, and they're like, hey, what's up with you this week? Oh, well, this is what's going on in my head. So it's been a theme for me for sure. I've learned over the years to not take myself so seriously. So I can pull away from my mind and I can watch the wave come and go. I can look for whatever needs to be pulled out of that as to like, well, why am I here? What do I need to get on the other side of this? I feel supported and I have tools and resources to work through and work out and get myself out of that. I think the Brotherhood has really helped me to stay connected instead of isolating.
Beyond the Brotherhood or a men's group supporting you in those times where you're redlining and feeling an overwhelming amount of anxiety, of all these feelings, emotions, wanting to isolate, what else has been helpful for you to kind of pull yourself out of that, hellhole, that well that you're feeling trapped in that moment? Like for you, what's worked beyond being in a men's group?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so a lot of things. I'd say the foundation is physical health. I mean, data backs us up, right? If I'm exercising, watching what I put in my mouth, getting outside in nature, I trend in the right direction, right? It's also true and unfortunate that if you're in a pretty deep rut and you're stuck and you're depressed, your stress tolerance, which exercise can be, is not easy to access. So I've been there too.
Yeah.
But that is, I would say that's the foundation. Exercise, clean up your eating, try and get your sleep back online, right? Leave the phone out of the bedroom, that kind of stuff. Maybe quit the alcohol and the weed. For me, when I did drink and smoke weed and I was feeling depressed or in that rut, for sure that's keeping me stuck there for weeks and months on end. Like I would go sometimes months of feeling really anxious and depressed and then using alcohol and weed to medicate that. And it works in the short term, but keeps you stuck in the long term. So connecting with that truth that, hey, like you're just sabotaging yourself. This needs to stop. That's also, I put that in the foundation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then a layer above that, you know, I found psychedelics really helpful.
In what way? To give you perspectives, or like how?
Oh man. So I'll name the psychedelics that helped me. I had a phase that lasted maybe a year of, you know, using mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Hugely helpful. What they did for me was they disabled that ruminating, like that doom looping part of my mind that was white knuckling this story. You know, my life's fucked.
Helping you let go of the narrative that's in your mind.
Yeah, it just sort of took that offline momentarily and opened up this emotional, kind of visceral emotional experience and connected me to my childhood memories or to a vision of the future or to a sense of like a spiritual sense of feeling connected to something outside of myself or something larger than myself that, you know, I'll just say was a spiritual experience. So I had a combination of all of those things most of the time. Sometimes I take mushrooms and just spiral into an anxiety storm. And unfortunately, that's you roll the dice a little bit with mushrooms.
Yeah.
That happened too, which is why psychedelics, I have a healthy amount of trepidation and am pretty hesitant to recommend anyone go that path. And I do so seldomly. I mean, I can't remember the last time I took mushrooms. This was years ago, but at the time, for that maybe year and a half period, I probably did mushrooms 5 or 6 times, spread out, you know, every couple of months, every 3 months. I had a buddy who was a good friend of mine. I don't know if you remember this, but I forget the time period, maybe 2013 to 2016, 17, there was just this wave of psychedelic, you know, therapy and research was in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's talking about ayahuasca this and MDMA that, right?
Yeah.
So we were in that wave, me and my buddy, and a lot of people apparently, and it did help me a lot. I had some profound journeys. So that was one tool. Did some ayahuasca as well. A little more savage than mushrooms. I don't, you know, often recommend ayahuasca, but it helped me.
Yeah.
You know, again, I had a couple that were horrific and difficult and anxiety storms, but I also had some profound experiences that brought through some wisdom and some compassion and some healing of my history with my childhood. Allowed me to reframe and look at that a little differently. So those helped. What else? You know, I think having the support in various communities, not just the Brotherhood, and building a vision, having a plan. I think there's a very practical reality when it comes to mental health, right? Sometimes the anxiety is pointing at something you need to look at. Like you don't have a plan for your life. You're in debt. You're stuck. You're unhealthy. Whatever. There's something usually. And there was always something for me too. I mentioned the drinking. I mentioned relationship to money, career, rebuilding, pivoting, moving in a direction that felt like, hey, I can trust my future. I can trust myself and I have a plan for the future. That's key. You know, we see this a lot, right? In our groups, guys are stuck and they're struggling and they have no plan. And their relationship to discipline and grit is not great.
Non-existent, yeah.
Right? So, no wonder you're anxious. You don't know how you're paying your rent. You're not working. All right.
I think like, I mean, you laid out these, I think all those are great suggestions. I guess the one example I'm thinking about is like say you have a person who's so deep in that hole where like, I know I need to do this, but I can't do it. I know I need to do that.
I've been there.
So how, like how do you get out of that? Like, cause you can list the things.
I can talk about this all day. Yeah. Let's take the bottom of the pit as an example. You're depressed. You're anxious. You're stuck.
And you know it.
And your tolerance for any discomfort is non-existent. Yeah. And I've been there. All right. I've been there more times than I wish to admit. Then you start with what's just outside of your reach. So maybe it's you go for a walk. Maybe it's you're not going to go to the gym and crush an hour-long CrossFit workout at 7 a.m. every morning, but you can go to the gym at 9 a.m. and sit in the sauna for 10 minutes.
Baby steps.
It's taking the small steps. You know, there's something that is hard, I think, to acknowledge here as well is a lot of, and I've been there, it's why this comes to my mind, a lot of the time you're in a relationship when you're stuck in this way, and it's really hurting the relationship. This is, this is close to my heart because I've been there myself, and I see a lot of men in this position where the relationship's not going well. Their partner doesn't trust them because they're not following through on their word. They've got no discipline or grit. They're depressed. They're stuck. And so that shame spiral is so much more intense because they're getting feedback sometimes daily that they're not good enough, that they're failing. And that's really hard if you're already
telling
depressed.
yourself you're not good enough. There's someone else there to tell you you're not good enough too.
And they're kind of right.
Yeah.
You are stuck. You are saying you need to do this and that to get out, but you're not doing any of it. So it becomes this feedback loop that just digs your hole deeper. I see that a lot. I've been there myself. So again, just think of something that's just outside of your reach. Go for that walk. Reach out to a buddy to connect, have coffee, have tea, don't isolate. Substances often come into the picture when people are in this phase of their mental health. And that's, I would say, if you are in this camp of substance abuse, you need help. I mean, I've lost count on how many guys I have in group with me who are kind of in this region of their mental health struggle, and they've got this plan of what they think they should be able to do to get themselves out. And the missing component of all of that is there's no one else there to support you. Like it's just unrealistic.
A connection, someone who cares, and someone you can be accountable to.
Some accountability, some structure. Some support. A yoga class for an hour will guarantee you an hour of productive time spent that will help pull you out of your depression, as opposed to, well, I'll just do my workout at home. You can't even get out of bed right now before 10 a.m. or not drink in the evening. So how about you book a yoga class in the morning, or a buddy will meet you in a gym to sit in the sauna for 15 minutes at a time that is not unreasonable for you where you're at right now. Maybe it's not 6 a.m., maybe it's 9 a.m., whatever. And maybe in the evening you go sit in an AA circle because you know that's when you're going to start cracking beers, right? Don't try and do it alone.
Yeah.
So I think this is important when you're stuck to get unstuck.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, now that we're talking about all these hard things, let's just continue it. Tell me about a very low point in your life and how you got through it and what you learned.
It's going for all the personal shit, eh? This is getting in there. Okay. A really low point in my life, how I got out of it. Well, we've known each other a long time, so this is not new to you. COVID and the 5 years after that, especially the 2 years after that, were brutal, brutal, dark night of the soul material.
Why? For you?
Well, I had a retreat center that I was building and running that got shut down during COVID, and then there was a fire that burned down one of the buildings, right? I lost half my beds, went from 18 to 9. And broke up with my girlfriend right in the middle of that, 2 weeks before the fire. Got sued by an insurance company right in the middle of all that too. So in a 3-week period,
it all came at once.
Broke up with the girlfriend, COVID wiped out my business, had to refund everyone. If there's a fire, I don't own this building. I don't know. I'm building a business on someone else's property to buy it was the plan. And now there's a fire while I'm there, right? One of the buildings burns down. And then this all happens in like a month. And I go back to Vancouver feeling broken. And then I get a call that my mother, who was struggling with cancer, is going to stop treatment and essentially go into palliative care. And so I flew home to support her. And I get home and my family, which is a complicated family, is not doing well. I have 2 younger sisters, and there's just a lot of support that's needed there. I won't go into specifics, but it was just not a good situation. Nieces and nephews, and I am doing what I always try and do, and I'm going to be the savior and try and help everyone. My father was involved in this too and needed support. And there were highs and there were lows. I won't paint this picture that it was all bad. It wasn't. New Zealand had no COVID. We were stopping it at the border with a 2-week mandatory quarantine with everyone. So I'm in a hotel that the government paid for, which I didn't mind. The food was good. And then I'm out and there's no COVID. So I'm going to sports games. I'm connecting to my nieces and nephews, buddies from high school that I'm still close with. I mean,
regular life's back on.
Yeah, regular life. The rest of the world's mounting down. I'm still in shock from all the things that have just happened.
Of course.
And now I'm also hands on deck trying to, save my family, fix my family, however you want to frame it. I don't think that was
with your mother,
literally
attend to your mother, and negotiate and manage family relationships all at the same time.
Yeah. And that was my story. I don't want to suggest that is exactly the situation as it was experienced by everyone involved.
Yeah.
But that was the story I was running and how I was trying to operate. And I was home for 14 months. It was supposed to be a few months, turned into 14 months. And I burnt out really badly, came home to Vancouver. That was December 2021. And so now it's been, a year and a half, roughly, since the fire and the breakup and getting sued and I'm back in Vancouver in my apartment and I just crashed. I really did. And I was, we talk about that rut, being stuck, depression, all of that. Dysregulated nervous system, running hot constantly, not sleeping. Thank God I was sober. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way I'm drinking right now or doing drugs.
If you were to.
I was so afraid that if I broke my sobriety, there's no coming back from that.
There's a path, path you're going down.
It was going to be self-destruct. I'm not coming back. I was already in so deep in that rut that if I added booze or drugs or anything, there's no coming back. I was already white-knuckling it on the edge. And, there's a lot to be said for you learn who your real friends are when you're struggling like that.
Because at this point, you've been in New Zealand for 14 months. You come back. during this time, are you in a men's group? You're not in a men's group? How are you connected?
Yeah,
How are you supported?
Well, as you recall, I'm sure we moved online during COVID. So that was great. I could still run my men's group online and participated in all of the group captain calls, and we navigated that time, I think, really well. I mean, we didn't have an online division until COVID, and it blew up. So I felt connected and involved, gave me some purpose. I discovered crypto and invested in crypto and made a bunch of money. So that was a silver lining that allowed me to be stuck in this mental health rut and not need to work. So there was that.
Because your livelihood had burnt down.
I had no business and I had a little bit of income from the Brotherhood as, we don't really make much money, but it wasn't enough to pay my bills, put it that way. But I made some lucky money in crypto basically. So that helped a lot. And when I came back to Vancouver, I was in a basically functional freeze. I wouldn't even say functional. It was bad. Yeah. I've never felt, I was like, am I having a midlife crisis? I felt very stuck. So that was, I would say, the worst for me. And it lasted a good chunk of time. And then my landlord sold my apartment. And and there was a rental crisis exploding in Vancouver.
Because your life needed some more instability, And
I had been gone for 14 months. So I don't know, what high rent was, or is this rental crisis a real thing, or is everyone being dramatic? And, I looked at maybe 30 different apartments. I'm like, oh no, it's a thing. 20, 30 people competing for these like inflated rents for rundown basement suites. Yeah. So, that was tough. I moved out to the cabin where I run my retreats and licked my wounds. And I actually I sat with ayahuasca. That's right. I remember now. That was what snapped me out of it.
Okay. Was that a hard journey that time you sat?
Always.
Yeah. Okay.
Always.
So when you sat with ayahuasca at that point in time, maybe helped you or shifted something in you?
Well, ayahuasca, and I'm sure other psychedelics, I know mushrooms has done this for me as well. It opens up the lens. It disconnects that doom looping panic mode that you can be stuck in. And for me, particularly this journey, it brought me back to trust in myself and in a vision that I can create for my future. It showed me a version of myself in the future that gave me some hope.
Yeah, I want to go there.
Oh, okay, that's right. I have these skills. I have these resources. I know these people. I have all these opportunities are right here, and I've proven that I can do these things. And it brings in this perspective in a really potent way that sort of sparks some mojo, like it just gives you that, oh yeah, you're capable and you're okay. It's not as bad as you think. Like the download was a lot of that. And that's why I actually moved out to the cabin. Because at the time I was, my apartment was gone. All my stuff's in storage. And I'm frozen in this state of depression and anxiety whilst trying to look for a new apartment and, so kind of get my shit together basically. And I went and sat with Aya and I thought, okay, go move out to the cabin, be in nature. It's on a lake, jump in the lake, use the sauna, and rebuild that, which is what I moved out there to do.
Oh, that's beautiful. It kind of gave you an answer of like, here's step one of how to begin healing or, get out of where you're at. Oh, that's great. What is your relationship to emotion generally, and being emotional and expressive? Maybe how that was for you as a child and changed throughout your life? I mean, 'cause I'll just say I've known you for a while now, and in this community, the outward looking at you, you're very much like a man's man. You were a boxer. You can be rough, you can be to the point, you don't mince words. And so I think from the outside, it can just very much look like you're a bit of like a rough and tumble, gruff man. But of course, I know you a little, there's more to you than that. So yeah, I want to speak to maybe the journey of you and your relationship to maybe how people view you, how you viewed yourself, and the connection with your heart and your emotions, and rage and whatever the spectrum of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I think growing up, there wasn't enough support and safety to grow into and express a fully realized version of myself in an authentic way. So I carried with me a lot of the baggage that a lot of men do, which was, I need to appear competent, intelligent, strong, stoic, successful, all of that. And underneath all of that, I would say I had a lot of trauma that, that word gets tossed around, honestly. I'm hesitant to use it. Big T trauma, little T trauma. Well, I had plenty of both, right? So that leaves its mark on, and it did for me, on my nervous system. And I mentioned hypervigilance and functional freeze. So they were very real for me, these states. And so I think my journey with how I relate to the world and my relationship to my emotional self, or that side of me that is more playful, more relaxed, is tenuous. It depends on, how well my life's going, what my mental health is like. So there's a spectrum here. And when I feel secure and strong and confident in my life, like the way I'm showing up in the world, the strength of my relationships, and for a lot of my life, that's been where I've been, in a really good space. Then I'm more, I find it easier to relax and connect and be more playful and be more emotional. And, my humor is more online and all of that. But when I'm over this end of the spectrum, then it's a little more stoic, it's a little more vigilant, and can seem like I'm distant, right? So it's been a journey for me, and it's another thing I've appreciated about the structure of this brotherhood, is having a bond that deepens with the weekly meetings over years with the men. So they get to see all sides of you.
Yeah.
And when you shift into that more vigilant, stoic, separate, even disassociated sometimes, they know you. We get to know the men in the circle that we're sitting with, right? And that can bring in some curiosity, like, hey, what's going on with you? Are you good? You seem a little rigid. or sharp. Yeah. That's something that comes up for me as well. Yeah, you mentioned the gruff, the man's man, direct. I mean, a lot of that for me was what was modeled. Yeah, my dad is very direct and not as polished as he could be on his delivery. It's cultural too. New Zealanders, Kiwis, they're direct and more liberal with sharing their judgments and even criticisms. I had to attune to the cultural differences of Canada coming here.
Quite a different.
It is. I was told in direct, no uncertain terms, hey, you can't be that direct. When I worked for that gym in North Vancouver there, I learned the hard way. I was in a management position. I had staff members that I was supporting and mentoring and training. And sometimes, just the feedback is too direct. You got to learn to polish it up, right? And being a coach or a leader in a men's group really helps with that, like tremendously, on how to deliver difficult conversations or lean into conflict or help draw a man into dialogue or into just a conversation and trust about a hard topic for him or for the group. And so that's really helped me, in a big way.
There's one thing being like an emotive, expressive person outwardly, like, some people who wear their emotions on their sleeves, so to speak. But there's also the other side of the equation, which is one's internal world. And I can speak for myself as like, there's certain emotions that I was more comfortable feeling internally, not like, let alone outward facing. I'm curious if there was any emotions in particular for you that were maybe disconnected or you had a poor relationship with that you had to like renegotiate or refine and connect within yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think playfulness, joy are emotions that are hard to access if your nervous system is not in a relaxed state and you don't feel a sense of trust and safety in the world, in your body, and around people. So if you have social anxiety or you have other mental health stuff going on, it's hard. So for me, that has been part of my healing journey, is having the tools and the practices in my life so that I can relax into my body and into my nervous system to access playfulness and joy. I mean, that's why I loved alcohol, because, a drink or two, I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
And I would get that feedback, especially when I quit drinking, in a playful way, but there's some truth there. I would get this feedback that, you're just more fun when you have a drink. You're more relaxed. You're more.
There's probably some truth to that.
There's 100% truth to that. Yeah.
So learning how to, it's so complicated. It's like learning how to feel comfortable and your nervous system calmed enough where you can actually allow yourself to feel those things. Whereas previously alcohol would make you unencumbered by maybe judgments or allowing yourself to feel those things.
Yeah. It's just it's that freeze, Yeah. It's that functional freeze. It's so insidious. And a lot of people, but I'm speaking more about men and men's work here. A lot of guys have this awareness, this narrative and this awareness running constantly around how they're showing up. Am I showing up as a confident, competent man? And that gets turned up when you're in that freeze stress state. It's the unfortunate consequence of having a heightened stressed nervous system, is it kind of pulls self-awareness into like it's not an adaptive or a good place to be.
Yeah. Always worrying about what people are thinking of you, fitting in, being accepted.
Comparing yourself to other people, feeling less than, feeling, social anxiety. And it can rob connection from your experience. And it's just not a fun place to be.
On that note, in today's world, today's zeitgeist, the idea of what it means to be a man and masculinity, it can be polarizing and people have all sorts of different ideas on it and about it. So I'm curious, one, what does it mean to be a man for you? Where did you get taught or maybe see your ideas of what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be masculine? And now you are a man sitting in front of me. What do you see unique about the male sex and what it means to be a man in today's world? There's a lot there. So
yeah, there's a lot
take it
there.
wherever you want.
I don't even know what direction to go here.
Start as when you're a young boy. I mean, you spoke already to your father kind of showing you some ways in which he was a man and ways in which you learned from him. Yeah. How did that shift within you as you've matured and grown into a full adult?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I didn't escape all of the stereotypes of what it meant to be a man growing up, you know, strong, tough. Like, I mean, I grew up in the 80s where the kind of muscle-bound Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger movies were all the hero worshipping that boys grew up idealizing. That's what I grew up with, right? And my dad was a man's man. He was a representation of that world too. And I grew up on a farm. So it's rural, it's rough, men's men world.
Hard work.
Hard work, you know, strong kind of earthly men.
Yeah.
And so that's what I adopted for sure. Thinking that, okay, if I'm going to be a man that is successful or respected in the world, then I need to be that too. I need to be the strong, alpha, competent, charismatic, all the things, all the euphemisms. But it's confusing because there's all these other messages too. You should be sensitive, you should be vulnerable. And even back in the 90s and 2000s, that was still around. You know, I joined various spiritual communities, meditation communities, and there was all kinds of books sharing that advice from men back then in the 90s and early 2000s. So, yeah, I was part of that, still am part of that zeitgeist, that culture, the more traditional masculine man. And today, what I would say is, I'm careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's value in these more traditional stereotypes for men. I think men do need to have a certain amount of strength and grit in the world and confidence that is authentic and within their scope of competence. That's a big issue, I think, with a lot of men who try and step outside of that scope of competence to present a version of themselves in this sort of frame of what it means to be a masculine man that is more performative, and that's not healthy. And I did it too. I think young men, we don't have any proof. We haven't done anything. But the world looks, I think, to us for some proof. What have you done? Thank God I didn't grow up with social media and looking at, you know, these examples of men presenting their version of masculinity and comparing myself to that. I can't imagine, you know, being a young guy going through high school today.
Thinking you have to be Giga Chad or...
Oh my God, having, you know, all these, like, I won't name them, but these social influencer male archetype versions of there's just so much out there right now. For me, I would say, where do I stand today with what it means to be a man and what does it mean to be a masculine man? I still think having, you know, authentic earned confidence built on proof of what you're doing and what you've done in the world is important. I think as a man, you need to do things and not just do things to get stuff or get status. That will come naturally when you do things that help other people, that bring value to the world. I think men need to stop being consumers, which is what you are when you're a child and when you even as an adolescent. You are the product of everyone else's efforts around you, whether it's your parents or your school or various communities or government social programs. Like you're a product. You're consuming the product of other people's efforts.
Yeah, you look to the world to figure out what to be, where to stand, right? You're learning.
You're not feeding yourself. You're not building anything or producing a lot.
Yeah.
Because that comes later, hopefully. There's a switch. So I think being a man is understanding that there's this change where you start being a net producer of value in the world and not a net consumer of other people's efforts.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's one piece I would add. I think having a pursuit of mastery, whether or not you become a master is not the point here, but a pursuit in mastery is important. Mm-hmm. It can be related to money. You may your career path and you build mastery there. It doesn't have to be. I think having a level of discipline and a relationship to discomfort whereby you have tolerance there is important. I don't think you need to be a Jocko Willink or a David Goggins type character. In fact, I think that's unrealistic for most men. It's unrealistic for me.
Yeah.
But you do need to have a good relationship to discomfort.
Yeah, overcoming challenges.
You need to be able to lean into hard things.
Yeah.
You need to be able to trust yourself to do hard things and not theory. You need to prove to yourself. You need evidence. Physical fitness, martial arts are a great avenue. That was my path into this world when I was younger. That helped forge this relationship in myself. Mm-hmm. And developing a career or a livelihood. Not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur and build, a startup into a multi-million-dollar company. I think that's really unrealistic. But you should be able to build some income, whether it's through a job or through a small business that you build or both. Maybe you flip between the two. It's fine, whatever. But there should be something there in your life that you build evidence in yourself and to anyone who may depend on you, like whether you're supporting your family or you have your own family. So I think that's important for women too, but we're speaking about men here. I think men need to have that in their lives. Self-awareness is really key, particularly when it comes to your blind spots and the way you perform in the world, your ego. So some maturity, some self-awareness.
You're listing a lot of things that I think, you even just kind of hinted to it a second ago, that can also, I'd say just for people,
100%.
Like having resilience is something I think both men and women should have. Having some sort of life work or life purpose or something you're giving your energy to is something that beneficial for both men and women. So kind of along this thread, I think a difficult question I want to ask you is like, what do you say to the man who feels like he's not a man or masculine or doesn't fit in that the stereotype, where does his place in the world fit in terms of honoring who he is authentically inside himself or who he thinks he is? Maybe he's more effeminate. Maybe he's not really fit. I don't know, like whatever doesn't fit the stereotype, fill in the blank. Yeah, what do you say to those men or about those men? And I think the same can be said for not just men, but also like women. Like there's the stereotypes for women being very effeminate and women who are not or maybe don't fit norms. So where do those who don't feel like they fit in a bucket in terms of how they feel about themselves and where they fit on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the world's a big place. There's a lot of people in each country, city, community. You'll find your people. So if you're a more sensitive, feminine man, there's no shortage of women and men who you can connect to in the world today. Mm-hmm. None. So if having good relationships in your life, which I think is important for all of us to have a good life, in that regard, these men and these women who may not fit into the more traditional stereotypes of male, female, masculine, feminine are going to do just fine. Mm-hmm. In terms of feeling good in your own skin and the way you show up in the world and how you feel about yourself, that's your journey.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have to walk that path for themselves. I would say, if we want to narrow it down to men who are not necessarily in that category of like the alpha, strong, traditional man, I would write down the story that you are.
What you think you are.
You're looping, like, what is the story of what a real man or a masculine man is? Let's get that down, and then either hash that out with a therapist or a close friend who you trust, who's intelligent, emotionally intelligent enough to help you process this. Maybe a men's group. Obviously, I'm biased towards men's groups, but there's so many resources and podcasts and books now, and I mean, there's no shortage to help you get clear on this, on the utility of this story. That's half the battle right there. And I have my own direction and bias, and if I speak to that, I would say the movement towards promoting more what some might say traditionally feminine qualities in men has been great. More emotional availability, more sensitivity around attuning to others' needs, particularly children and women, more compassion, more empathy.
Being an integrated man.
Yeah. This has been great. Can that swing too far? Can you lose your center as a masculine man? Yes, also. So I said initially, everyone's path is going to be unique to them. You've got to walk that. And I would just say, tune in to how you feel in your body and in the world. Is it serving you? Because you may have collected a bunch of beliefs around masculine and feminine that when you package all of these beliefs and you develop values around these beliefs and you've got all these stories in your head. So I say journaling it down and helping process this with other people is really good. You may have a lot of cognitive dissonance and even maybe anger or rage or self-loathing.
Self-rejection.
You got all these, you're all kind of, you're messed up. And that's common today. I mean, how many times do you see guys coming into our groups and they're all, you mention anything in this world and their tolerance for a different perspective is non-existent and they start spiraling because they've got a really confused basket of ideas around all of this stuff that they're trying to stitch together an identity or a set of values that they want to use to operate in the world. And it's confusing and it's charged and they're not functioning well. So I would say get clear on what these stories are and tune into how you're experiencing yourself in the world. And if it's not working for you, maybe we need to wordsmith that a little bit. Let's craft this in a way that, and give yourself some permission. It's okay to be a more masculine, traditional masculinity. It's okay to bring some of those qualities back in a balanced way. There was definitely a baby with the bathwater.
Absolutely. I think a lot of, men have definitely been a punching bag for the last 20, 30 years. And in some cases, there's aspects of traditional, we'll call it traditional masculinity. It's not even the right way to call it. Like ways in which men acted in the past that were not of an integrity.
For sure.
And I think the bathwater that got thrown out is maybe some of those qualities that men have that when
the baby
held with, when held with integrity actually serve a very important purpose for men and for society.
Yeah, for sure. Like defending the weak, standing up to injustice, saying no.
Yeah.
We need those qualities.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. In our organization, our founder created a code that we aspire to live by. It's kind of like an ethos for our organization and for the men in our organization to look to. Part of that code, there's one aspect of that code that is, I think it's one of the most important in terms of an individual's journey on introspection, and it's know thyself. And I think a lot of what we're talking to now, which is like the nuance of accepting or rejecting or self-identity
Mm-hmm.
very much has to do with that.
Yeah.
How have you experienced that journey for yourself in terms of knowing yourself? Like, and I'm not just talking like, oh, this is who I am. I work this job. that kind of to depths that maybe you discovered while in this organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it that we're pivoting to the code and just some of the notes you've got written down there about the Brotherhood and all of this. So know thyself, which is in the first 4 points in the code, right? All right, number 2. There are layers. Knowing thyself is the deeper you go into this, the more uncomfortable it gets. Because if you're going to be really honest,
there's parts of yourself you probably don't.
Yeah, we all have an agenda, that I'll speak for myself. The part of me that has an agenda in life, whether it's in relationships, with work, with how I want to build my life, my future, like I have a plan, I have an agenda. And if I'm balanced in the way that I approach the world and the people in it, I'm balancing that agenda with a reciprocation of value and with integrity, right? And in the know thyself point in the code, how I've grown in that is really being honest and attuning to what that agenda is in any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And how I craft my relationships and in a way that it's a win-win and it's productive for everyone whenever possible is important. And sometimes it's not. And so knowing thyself is catching yourself or owning it when it becomes, and you get some feedback from a boss or a client or whoever that, hey, this doesn't feel balanced.
No one's a saint.
This doesn't feel fair or right. And it's hard. It's really hard in life. And we focus a lot on this, as you know, in these brotherhoods and these groups. This is why we open share, which is the bread and butter, right? It's a lot of the meeting time. It's just sharing what's going on in your life, and the group helps tease out the facts, not the feelings, not the story. That's important too, the facts, so that we can maybe find some blind spots there where you're being maybe selfish or your agenda is not balanced. You're taking advantage of a situation or you're out of integrity, whatever. And not even necessarily big things, just the little things that slip in all the time. And so for me, that's been a big part of knowing thyself, in that I've learned or got supported in this journey in this brotherhood, is reality checking, as T likes to call it. Reality check yourself. Get the facts on the table, share those with the group, or just look at them in an honest way. And so having that self-awareness and that honesty. There is a level of social attunement, relational attunement that comes with that self-awareness that makes you a more productive man in so many ways, right? That experience, right? If you're in a relationship with someone, could be a friend, could be a colleague, could be a boss or an employee, whatever. And you might be on a journey or a path towards an agenda, an outcome that you didn't necessarily choose or create, but you're a part of it. But you feel the whole time you're on this path towards this outcome that it's good for you, that there's some attunement there from the other person, that they're aware of okay, well, this is how it's going to help you too. That's a nice feeling. But if you are not attuned because you've got an imbalance towards what's in it for you versus how does this help everyone? Yeah. Well, then the experience isn't going to be great, and you won't see it. A lot of people don't see this. A lot of men don't see this because we're supposed to be driven and focused and produce and succeed and make the money and get the status and all the things. And but developing leadership skill, which is how I look at this, and it's something we focus on a lot in the Brotherhood, which is knowing thyself and having the self-awareness and the attunement to build a successful experience for everyone as much as you can. It's not always possible, but it's not possible if you don't have that self-awareness. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know yourself and your agenda and why you're, and I learned this the hard way many times throughout my life. Being too pushy with what I want or how I want something to go, or not accepting someone else to lead in a given situation because not on my terms.
On the journey of self-knowing, getting to know thyself, oftentimes what can be found isn't always the nicest. I mean, if there's one thing that's true in today's world is we know humanity's capacity for evil and humanity's capacity to do terrible things. I mean, just look around the world right now. There's examples left, right, and center. A lot of our work, including part of getting to know thyself, includes, what Jungian called shadow work, or a person's shadow, the dark parts of one's psyche that exists. I wonder if you could speak to, how shadow work has come up for you, what it's like exploring maybe and owning like the uncomfortable parts of your personality, the uncomfortable parts that maybe only exist in your mind, but don't maybe manifest in actions in the world. And what's that been like for you?
Yeah, big subject, shadow work. Everyone's got their own take on it. 10 different books, 10 different versions of what shadow work is. So how I have experienced shadow work or worked with it in myself and in the groups that I have been either leading or a part of is just looking at the parts of yourself that you may know are there, you may not know are there, that you may not want to look at. So the ways that you're not honest, or you are selfish, or show up as a bully. Just areas in your life that you're out of integrity, or how you can be reactive with anger or resentment or jealousy, envy. And where is that coming from?
How does it show up for you?
There's a lot of ways this shows up for me. So anger, for sure. If I feel, and this is like, there's a lot here, especially for men, but I would say if I feel that I'm being disrespected by someone, taken advantage of, then there is an angry reaction, in my mind and in my body. And I got to check myself, because my reaction, if I allow it to bust out into behavior, comes from a place of victimhood, I think, if I had to name it, which is rooted in childhood trauma, a lot of it. And often there's some truth. So you see something real, maybe you're being disrespected or slighted or taken advantage of, that's sometimes the case, but the reaction is like overboard. And that's something I've had to work on a lot. Hence the childhood trauma comment, because it's got history for me. And so I've had to look at that. In the time, I'm feeling like I want justice.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to punch this guy. I want to
I'm going to
show him
I'm going to face off with him or her, boss, employee, colleague, friend, whatever. The amount of times I've gone to war.
Yeah. Even
over something.
verbally wanting to go to war and win.
100%. Yeah. I don't, thank God I'm not busting out into like fisticuffs over.
There are people in society who do.
I know. We could talk about that. That's a whole thing right there for sure. I think a lot of guys, need support in, and we need to discuss as a society, like why are so many men snapping to violence so quickly? Right. That's a whole other thing. So for me, it's knowing that there's a wounded bully in me. A lot of men struggle with this, and I know what it's like to struggle with this. I've burned some bridges. I've lost friends by being activated in the wounded bully. And often I was right in the thing that got me triggered, but the reaction was just overboard. Yeah, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, and I lean into conflict. I don't lean out and hide from it. That's, I forget that a lot of people are not like that.
Yeah. Especially
women. So if I'm, feeling disrespected or taken advantage of or whatever, and I lean into the conflict and it comes across like it's aggressive. So I've had to look at that over the years. It hasn't been easy owning that side of myself. That's one example. Growing up, I go back to where this came from, so I'll start here. Growing up, it was every man for himself. A lot of selfish, the culture was very selfish in my family. And there was this either abject neglect or, bullying, rageful outbursts, crisis, lots of crisis.
A lot of reactivity.
It just wasn't a safe environment. Yeah. Right. So fast forward, another area, some two examples here. I've had to look at the parts of my shadow that were hard to look at and unpack, is how that lone wolf, we talked about that before, every man for himself, I have that in me. And, we talked about attunement when you have an agenda and being collaborative and being, operating in relationships with others so that it feels like, hey, what we're doing right now is good for both of us, and just staying attuned to that. Before I had developed that piece on how I relate to people and how I operate, I would catch myself often or be called out in just being selfish in the way that I was setting things up in my life, like my terms, my agenda, my terms it wasn't a win-win. It wasn't as collaborative as it could have been. And it didn't need to be that way. I was just, gathering my acorns, like this is mine, this is what I need. And, sometimes the lines get blurred in that type of behavior where you're just taking advantage of situations, or you're putting yourself in front, you're being competitive, you're putting yourself in front of other people to catch opportunities. And so, looking at that was hard growing up. I'm in my late 40s now, so a lot of the stuff I've cleaned up in my 20s and 30s. But there was a time in my life where, life would slap me in the face with a difficult lesson that, hey, you're out of integrity here. Another example, I'll give you one more that I've had to confront in my life personally, is approval seeking. This one sucked. This one was the worst. Approval seeking and approaching it in a way that was completely out of integrity or that you weren't being authentic. I'll speak for myself. Like, I wasn't being authentic. So I was performing or showing up in a way in a work environment, we'll say. I'll be specific. So I moved to London in my mid-20s, got a job in a restaurant. Great job. Steakhouse, high-end, Canary Wharf, banking sector. Making great money. Everyone there was like, we're all young, we're all hot, we're all partying after work. Like, it was a fun time. And I was a new waiter because I'm waiting tables. And I was given a lot of privilege because I was hardworking and I was willing to go the extra mile, and anything that was needed, I'll do it. And I was compensating for a lack of experience. So I thought I should just say yes to everything and try and bring as much value as I can, which is not a bad strategy. Like, that's great. But in that, and it came from an anxious place, right? It came from trying to seek and win approval from the managers of the restaurant, or whatever, right? And so I became a bit of a teacher's pet, and sometimes that looked like I would police the other waiters by reporting them to the manager. Like, I crossed that line a couple of times, and then the manager would go reprimand that person, and then that person would just be like, what the fuck, man? And I instantly felt that like hit of shame, like, yeah, what the fuck? Why did I do that? Just not catching myself. So that was hard. And then the other side, which this has come up for me so many times, is my issue with authority. Where if I, again, felt disrespected or taken advantage of, or there was in my mind, a betrayal of trust, I would turn on the person who was the leader, and I would start to challenge or even try and sabotage their role. And I did that in this restaurant.
Yeah.
And got fired.
Didn't last long.
Didn't last long. And I did it. I've done it since, in my 20s and my 30s, I've tripped myself up on that a few times where whatever the story is, and sometimes, quite often, there's some truth. There is some truth in the reaction, but the reaction didn't need to happen. That was me coming from a wounded place. And so going to like war, like challenging the authority that I no longer trusted. Very common. A lot of men have an issue with this. I had an issue with this. So it's another example of like my shadow is coming to terms. But when I go back and I'm taking a forensic look at how I've shown up in the past and the collateral damage to my behavior, and looking, okay, well, what came up for me then? Is that relationship to authority, that relationship to people pleasing, both different sides to the same coin. And yeah, they're not easy. They're not easy parts of your personality to change.
No, but it sounds like the process was incredibly useful for you. One, acting in integrity, navigating the world, having good relationships, not getting fired. Like having the ability to check yourself and have a self-awareness is exactly what it is. Like know thyself, know that you have the ability to go into undermine authority. You have the ability to seek approval. You have those, you can have those tendencies. And by having the awareness, it saves you a lot of headaches from not going down those paths.
I mean, it's that charge that comes usually from your history that pollutes the process.
Yeah.
If you can become self-aware around the charge and then diffuse it, quite often there's something that didn't need to happen, whether it was clear an issue you were having with a superior, or approach the person who was not performing directly and say, hey man, I noticed you're doing this thing that, we're not supposed to be doing. And just wanted to point it out rather than going above them and ratting them out to seek approval. And then sabotaging that relationship with that guy. And I really like this guy too. Like I'm just remembering this instance where there was this guy working behind the bar. We had these nice white tea towels that are just plain white. They're not for polishing glasses, right? They're not for mopping up spilled drinks. This is how dumb it was. And we were getting reamed, the waiters, because they were getting blamed for using these white cloths to mopping up like the drinks. And I'm like, it's not us, man. And I see this guy doing it. And I'm like, it's this guy. And he was like, dude. And that was that friendship busted before it even formed, because we weren't even mates yet. And I liked this guy, we had some good rapport. Gone, over one dumb thing like that.
So funny. Yeah. Our ability to self-sabotage, always there.
Yeah.
If you were to give yourself one piece of advice before you joined men's work, what would that piece of advice be? So
advice for someone who's thinking of joining a men's group, or
I'd say for you.
Okay.
Like before you joined men's work, is there, like, if you could go back and like gift yourself something, for you specifically, what would that be?
Community. Don't do it alone. Don't do everything alone. Join, participate in, create a community of like-minded, or even better, if you could sprinkle in some people who you aspire to model and follow, that's great.
Nice.
Yeah. Because going back to that lone wolf comment, I was a bit of a lone wolf. And sometimes it worked great. And I was able to craft a life that I enjoyed and build a lot of confidence and had some great experiences over the years. But when you're not doing so great, you're struggling or you're hitting a wall in life and you're alone, you stay stuck way longer than you need to. So having some community, and I think a lot of men, if I can speak to this briefly, because I give this advice all the time in my groups, especially to the guys who are frozen stuck. They're in that rut, they're at home, or they're in the relationship, the work situation, whatever it is. They're not moving emotionally, mentally, physically. They're just frozen and not doing well. And I give this advice, don't do it alone. It's sometimes hard to accept because the last thing they feel like they have capacity for is forming new relationships and getting out there and, expending that energy and making that effort. And so for guys like that, and I've been there, I would say, but it doesn't need to look like you showing up and, being Mr. Rapport and
center of attention
and extroverted, or even just being able to connect and be present and attuned to other people. Like that's not available for a lot of men who are struggling and stuck. You can still go and do a yoga class or sit in a cafe and talk to the girl or guy who's going to, take your order. You can pull yourself out of your shell a little bit and connect to other people. There are so many support groups out there, whether it's AA, NA, what's that one? Adult Child of Alcoholics.
Okay.
Yeah, ACOH.
Nice.
I think it is. They a great community. A lot of inner child work, a lot of understanding what it's like to grow up in a family where there was addiction and alcoholism. Amazing. Like there's so many, it's endless now, the communities that are out there. It's isolation that keeps you stuck. So if I could give myself some advice going back into my 20s, 30s, I would say, and I always, I moved to London when I was 25, had great friends groups. So I always had friends, as an adult. So that wasn't necessarily what I lacked. But when I say community, I mean growth-minded, deeper connections, not just having fun, hanging out with your mates. I mean, the growth-minded, deeper connections did come into my personal friendship circles as I matured and was sort of like mid-20s on. But for a lot of guys, I mean, you meet guys like this all the time, I'm sure, they don't have any friends like this.
That they can count on? No.
Where they can talk about vulnerable things, open up about addiction or mental health or whatever. Which, that's why we're doing what we're doing. And many other communities are doing what they're doing. So, that'd be my advice.
Well, on that note, I want to say thank you for joining me. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I think we'll leave it there. But for those who want to find you, obviously you run Mixall Lodge, soon to be Elk Lodge. How can people find you? How can people connect with you and the work you're doing?
Elk Lodge, Instagram is everything I'm doing there. For now, just that's the only plug I'll drop because I'm rebranding and rebuilding all of that. So before I name any websites or social media, I think we'll just stick to that and everything will branch off from there.
So stay tuned for Elk Lodge.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, thanks, mate.